What is up? What is up?
GM.
DK, how goes it?
Good.
Mm.
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Are you happy
hmm
with the markets at the moment?
I haven't even looked at the markets yet today, dude. Market's good. Market's bad. Looks bad.
Prices not seen in 2 days. It's not that bad.
Nah, it's whatever. Yeah, we'll survive.
Oh, that we will. Oh, so what's been happening, man? Let's uh, let's talk crypto. Um,
Start with tornado.
yeah. I was gonna say that was probably the news that um stuck with me kind of the most as I was sifting through everything after we got off yesterday, looking like the developers um, getting charged.
Yeah, I don't know if they like arrested him or they just charged him, but I know that they're the Russian nationals. They live in Dubai. Two of the people were charged at least for um, laundering over $1 billion through their crypto mixing service. I know that there were like some assertions about money transmitting, some assertions about that even after the fact they still weren't compliant because they weren't limiting OFAC controls. Um, I know that a few weeks ago, when Coinbase sponsored the legal counsel of the privacy aspects of Tornado Cash, so I know that the basis was if I wanted to raise money for Ukraine, and I didn't want that to be associated with my me personally, that is a legitimate reason for Tornado Cash. If I wanted to be an anonymous donator to Ukraine, and essentially they said that's bull, that's BS. Sorry, that doesn't work. But that's the last I heard of that.
It's looking like they're calling LARP also on the Chainalysis sanctions contract, which we kind of knew would happen, but um, it's I guess funny to kind of finally see in a court document.
Yeah,
For
I mean,
people that don't know
any,
what that is, it essentially was a it's a contract that listed all of the sanctioned addresses by OFAC, and would run a check to make sure that none of the money was coming from those addresses, and that is what they had implemented to say that Tornado Cash was now OFAC compliant. The issue with that is that it doesn't track or chain trace, you could say, to see if the funds had moved from Tornado Cash sanctioned address. An OFAC sanctioned address to a new address before going to Tornado Cash. So TLDR, you could easily get around it by just sending to a fresh address. The crazy thing is that there are a lot of I don't protocols, companies, whatever that offer services like this that people are using, and they all have some kind of like lag on them to where they're skirtable. So it makes you wonder, um, if they knowingly are selling these services to protocols, understanding that it's they're not providing any form of like real safety net to them.
look, I mean,
Seems like a grift.
it is a grift, and I think everyone's kind of aware of that, except for the government, because you can go to the government and be like, "Look, I'm compliant. I'm using this," so they can get their rubber stamp and say that they're doing the checks when they know that the checks are easily, you can easily go around them. I mean, if they really wanted to implement this, they would use callbacks. So they would do you similar to like how ENS works, where like you have to submit a transaction, and then you have to wait a minute, and then before you can buy the ENS, you would do something like that, where you submit a transaction where it'd be like, can I do this transaction with this wallet address? It would then do a chain link function, gelato function call off chain to say, is this, what's the chain trace on this address? You'd be like, oh, it just came from an OFAC, so fail it. And then after your minute is up, you'd go to do the transaction, and it would say, sorry, you're ineligible. I mean, if I was the developer doing this, that's how I would do it. But, I don't think they were actually trying to make it compliant.
Too dumb to check to see if the money moved to a new fresh address. Smart enough to come after you for all the taxes you haven't paid on your crypto. Funny how that works. What else we got? Pendle integrating real world assets into the platform. How many days ago was that? 4 days ago or so? A few days ago? I feel like it was
I don't know.
recent. Utilizing MakerDAO's boosted savings SD. Is it SDI and FluxFind FUSDC? First real world assets based product. This move allows Pendle users to profit from real world assets. What's funny to me is that that we're tying fiat-based stablecoins into real-world assets. I know they offer stuff based on treasuries, so I'm not. This isn't a jab at Pendle. It's more of an industry thing where we were talking earlier, and we've heard people in the past talk about how they're building, in RWAs, or they're incorporating RWAs, and what they were referring to as like essentially cash or cash settled assets, and that seems really like silly to me. Like,
just rebranded as stablecoin.
yeah, like projects just trying to hop on like some
Buzzwords.
narrative they think will pick up. But I do like the basing it off of real world assets, like U.S. Treasuries, bonds, stuff like that. Usually comes to mind. And we were talking before about back in the era of dreams, the ICO phase. I had like a handful of real world asset ICO projects reach out, and the one that always stuck with me was this project that was going to tokenize condo buildings, like by unit. So they aim to make the process of purchasing and transferring your condo unit much easier for anyone who's ever purchased a home. It's not exactly the shortest or easiest process to go through. But it was quite laughable because they wanted to do this with an ERC20 token. We all know what happens once ERC20 tokens for shitcoins hit the market. So it would have been very, very interesting to see. On top of that, they're in the U.S., so I don't know how long they would have survived. And back then, I thought it was a really, really dumb idea. I mean, still now, I still think that the way that they were going to implement it was a very dumb idea. But the idea in itself, I loved, because I do think that, as we continue moving further into the future and away from like the traditional systems that we've used in the past into digital systems, that when you look at things like deeds and like your registrations and things like that, like those type of documents totally could be and I think belong like on an immutable ledger. I remember Dash like years ago was doing this with actually like weed strains, or someone was doing this on Dash, because it might have been Monsanto. There was a huge company that was coming in, and they were trying to patent like tons of strains of marijuana. So there were some guys that were beating them to it essentially by putting it
on
chain.
the blockchain. Yeah,
by putting it on chain. And I always thought that stuff like that was really cool because when you like look at like what a blockchain is, like it's an immutable database, and there's certain types of information and documents that belong on an immutable database. Things like patents and documents that are of importance that if they were lost or destroyed would cause some type of financial harm or restrictions to you, that blockchain's a perfect place for them.
Um,
What crazy
back,
RWA shit have you heard about?
um, I don't know. The one that makes sense, obviously, is treasuries, right? So, like, you go into the no yield environment in which a lot of crypto was kind of brought up in, especially the last kind of bull run, if you will, was, before we started to raise rates, money was super cheap. Money was given away for free for individuals that are impacted by COVID. And then you had all these different yielding products on crypto. And you get to, there's obviously a risk premium for the crypto space. Um, but then you come into an environment 3-4 years later where rates are a little bit higher, like the risk-free rate is a little bit higher, significantly higher. And then the risk premium of crypto is also significantly high. So like the cost of capital on chain is what, like 15 to 20% probably. And so if you're not getting anywhere near that, then you just makes sense to take your money off chain and park it somewhere for cheap. You can park it somewhere for like 5% return with little to no risk. And so I don't know. That's the fact that people are bringing the treasuries on chain makes sense. I still don't think that. I mean, it's good for keeping capital in the crypto sphere, but yeah, I mean, I'm super bullish on property in the future and like REITs on chain and the fluidity of being able to move over title or fractionized titles, even though it's kind of illegal in some jurisdictions. But I think we're still got ways till we get there. I mean,
Do you do you
go
think
ahead.
it provides a level of security for I don't know, maybe more more serious, more on the pro tail like side of things when it comes to investors when they're looking at something, that their reserves are in real world assets like treasuries or bonds versus uh, their treasury being in shit coins and bespoke stable coins?
Well, in traditional finance, like U.S. Treasuries are used for collateral for everything, right? Like it is like cash. It pays a yield, and it's used to collateralize the entire trade fi industry, right? And so bringing those on chain at scale is definitely necessary to move a lot of the trade fi volume and the collateralization and the and margin and all of that. Bringing it on chain, you have to bring US treasuries on chain. So like I get that component. And that's going to be like a massive industry one day,
Do you think
assuming
that'll
that.
cause conflict with the U.S. government, though, when you have, entities from other countries that are not nation states that control large portions of U.S. treasuries? Like, right now they've talked a bit about how, or I shouldn't say they, people have talked a bit about how Tether owning so much in U.S. treasuries gives Tether kind of this like shadow advantage, because it's like, um, how do you really come at someone when they like in a way not have you by the balls, but they've got a they've got a grasp a bit.
Hmm, what are they going to do? Dump the price of U.S. treasuries? Like, what are they going to do?
they're
You know
they're
what I mean? Like,
they're a large controller of
doesn't mean shit
United
though,
States
right?
assets.
I mean, they're holding bonds that they get paid a fixed rate on, and fucking they made a fuck ton of money last quarter. So, I
Indeed.
mean, the worst thing that can happen is that they, if you have significant what's the word I'm looking for? Consolidation within a certain entity is that if they would choose to unload, um, and they kind of bring down the price, that affects like future issuances and stuff like that. So sure, they have an indirect impact, but what else are you going to put your money in if you're sitting on that much extra capital?
Tokenized condos.
Yeah, yeah. Until the we get another 2008, right? Like until we get an asset backed bubble again, and the price of those plummet 50%. Right? U.S. Treasuries are going to hold. If the U.S. Treasuries default, we have a million more problems in the world than like the backing on like USDT, for example. Like the whole entire financial sector is based on U.S. Treasuries. Um, so yeah. Anyways, I think that would be like I've always said that like if these default, we'll have so many more problems than not collecting your redemption price on U.S. Treasuries.
Brings up an interesting point with these assets using different forms of real world assets. What happens when there's negative yield? Does their like compounded yield that they're getting off of the DeFi stack have to level out? Are they going to change like the way that they're issuing inflation, or like I wonder what they've. I haven't dug into the architecture of some of these RWA wrappers or synthetics to know how they handle that, but
Well,
that
it
would be interesting.
depends on what the use case is, right? So like if you have somewhere like I want to say Germany, right? Like Germany, they encourage like they had like a negative yield on their savings account, and it might have even been their treasuries, but they encourage you to go out and spend money, right? That you shouldn't be holding any cash in your bank account because if you do, then we're gonna slowly draw it down, right? So that encourages you to spend your money, pushes like especially service based economies, but pushes you to consume. That's one product that is distinct and different from something like um, a ETF that has gone down, right? So like if you have an ETF that is worth $100 and it's constantly paying like a 5% dividend yield, do you extract out the 5% yield and so it's going to be positive, but then you have capital loss? But then what if I guess it depends on I need to learn more about these yield tokens and the principal tokens because if you have a capital loss, so for example, if you had a DOV, an options vault, and you it's not guaranteed that it's always going to go up only, is that negative? I'm assuming that you put in $1,000 into a DOV and then it could go up, it could go down. With these types of products like Pendle, do they harm the yield token bearer if the price goes down, or is it the principal bearer? Because I know that the principal token plus the yield token needs to equal the value of the asset, um, like the 4626 or
Yeah, yeah.
46. You know what I mean? Like it has to
Yep.
equal that. But I just don't know like which one do they depreciate, which one goes negative.
Yeah. Good cue. We'll have to dig into that a bit. On the regulatory side of things, come September 1st, the UK is implementing their travel rule forth by the FATF. Um, I was always, when I was thinking of travel rules being implemented, I was more thinking on the side of them making us declare digital currency when traveling. But you were telling me a bit earlier that this is more akin to like what we currently do, just you know, from one institution to our bank institution. You want to touch on this a bit?
Yeah. So, travel rule initially was designed for AML, anti money laundering. It goes coincides in lockstep with KYC, know your client. And so, in the way that it works in traditional banking, is that every time money kind of moves between accounts or between banks is that you need to know the sender and you need to know the receiver, right? And so some things, so like when you open up a crypto account with, let's say, Kraken, and you need to deposit your money from Kraken into your bank account, you can only deposit it into an account in which bears the same name as the Kraken account, right? Whether they both be um, a corporate account and they have the same legal entity name, or if it's ultimate beneficial owner and it's like a personal account, um, the receiver and the sender have to be known and they have to be the same. That's how they can kind of get around like not having to do too much of a stringent check on where the money's coming and going from, right? In traditional banking, it gets when you start doing like, large cash moves and you start doing cross-border payments, when you start like, having agent banks and third parties and you're onward delivering, and there's a lot of complexities in the banking, especially on the business side of things. And so you need to make sure that you understand that this is where the money's coming from, this is where the money's going. Different banks have different levels of controls. Sometimes a bank might not be implementing all of the sanctions checks that they need to be doing because maybe they're, a bank based in, I don't know, Israel, and they're not, adhering to the same rules that a bank in the US might be adhering to, right? So if you're a US bank, you need to check that the, uh, and this is where like Swift comes into play if you don't really know Swift too much, but this is where you'll check like the actual message within the Swift and say like, okay, is there any like, known names in this Swift in which that I need to run versus an OFAC list, and check to see if is this person sanctioned or not. If this person's sanctioned, I need to essentially DK, no pun on my name, but I need to don't know this cash back to the submitter. If I don't, then my omnibus bank account might get fully locked up, right? And so like you saw this with like some of the Argentinian times of like larger banks receiving like Argentinian government bond payments landing into like an omnibus account, and them those those accounts getting locked up. And then from your business use case, like, I mean, if you're like a bank and your omnibus account gets locked up, that means that anyone that's sending or receiving money, just like you would see like a Kraken hot wallet, like any money that goes into that Kraken hot wallet is locked up. And so like from a regulatory perspective and running a business perspective, you need to make sure that you're adhering to this travel rule, because otherwise uh, the regulators have the ability to lock your business up, and it's a significant drawdown for any of your clients, because how are you going to explain, hey, sorry, I couldn't get you your money, like we accidentally took some money from a terrorist, somewhere. So
Yeah, people don't realize how like kind of serious it is. There's been a lot of kind of pushback on DeFi protocols when they're enabling these kind of blocks on the front end and stuff. And like, I think it comes a lot from people who aren't experienced with having to deal with different 3 and 4 letter agencies, because it's not fun whatsoever. I know a company I worked for in the past in the space had issues because of just support. Not even with like the transactions that were taking place. Their downloads page and front end was blocked from all sanctioned countries, but and like their Slack was for support, but that didn't stop someone from using a VPN to download, get access. So there were in the beginning, there weren't really any checks in place because they felt that that was enough. But eventually, through a support issue, it was found that they had provided service to someone from a sanctioned country, and then it was a huge process. But they then implemented, like APIs to ping for every like support user that came in, that would check, the email with associated names with their registered. This is all like in a OFAC like database, and it would just kind of run it against that. If there were, it took like less than a minute, but they'd run it against that. If there were no hits, then like you were free to proceed, chatting with them. If there were, there was like a medium, like a middle status, which meant you had to do like a more thorough check. You had to like submit a little bit more information. Um, and then there were obviously the last one was just like that it was a hit and that you couldn't provide them service. And in those cases, there was a scripted email that you had to send. If they were in Slack, there was a scripted message, and then you weren't allowed to say anything after that. Like not a word to them. It was cut off all lines of communication. Um, and it was very serious. Like if after that had happened, if you fucked up, like you were gone. That no one was risking um, additional fines or anything being added, or potential jail time for them operating a business that was doing this stuff knowingly. Uh, After like being in the process of setting up guardrails. Uh, but yeah, I mean it's definitely not fun. You could lose your whole business, lose all your money, all your banking relationships.
Yeah, I mean it's a nail in the coffin for businesses, so you have to kind of comply with it. Otherwise, they'll hang you out to dry. It's unfortunate, but that's how it works. And there are certain jurisdictions that are allowed to do business with other jurisdictions, right? So, like obviously, the U.S. has their OFAC list, and Europe has their OFAC list, and certain European member countries have their own OFAC list, and maybe Iran is not on one of those lists, but it is on the U.S. list, and so like you have to continuously make sure that you're submitting all of the necessary information as it moves from one intermediary to the next. And that's what the travel rule is, right? It's making sure you continuously send that information as the funds travel through the banking sector. And so I don't know, it's insanely difficult to do in crypto because it's not like we're sending metadata along with transactions, right? And so they've had to like go around that by like pre-approving accounts, and like you may or may not know this, but like most of the centralized exchanges actually share lists.
Yep.
And like they know that this is DK's account on Kraken and this is DK's account on Coinbase, and so if I'm sending money from one to the other, then it's okay because it's DK on both sides. But if it's not, and I'm sending something from a Russian exchange to DK's account at Coinbase, then it's going to flag up, especially if it's not in DK's name in Russia. So you might not have that problem, but they definitely need to enforce that at like the Coinbase or Kraken level.
Yeah. All right, on to some brighter news. We talked about base a lot yesterday, but more shit going on over there. They just surpassed Arbitrum in, what was it, daily
Active wallet.
active wallets, yeah. Which I don't know, that one. This is not because of my Arbitrum forward mindset, but I don't think that will sustain personally. I still think that base summer is just kind of base summer, but we'll see. We'll see if they prove me wrong. Any thoughts on that for you before I move on to my next thing I'm kind of happy about?
Comment on the video. So we actually don't know this. Can you withdraw capital from your Coinbase account, not wallet, because I know the wallet you can, but just your Coinbase account directly onto Base yet? Or do you still have to go from like Ethereum mainnet to Ethereum mainnet Coinbase wallet, and then you have to go through the bridge to go from Ethereum mainnet Coinbase wallet onto Base? Because I think that once you can go directly to Base, then maybe that will change a little bit. I don't know. But
Yeah, so
still.
we don't know this because I'm locked out of my Coinbase account. And what I'm thinking is, all right, two things. Either A, it's just time for me to update my info with them, or B, they do have this now. So with their latest app update, maybe everyone has to resubmit stuff. Not sure, but I think that'll be huge once you can go directly from Coinbase Exchange app to Base. You're now seeing more grandfathered in protocols like Aave launching on Base. That still doesn't like really move the needle for me because Aave is everywhere. So it's like in my mind right now we have Aave, you have Aerodrome that the Velodrome guys are launching over on Base. and you have friend tech, which are like the things that people
It's
are and people will
it's
actually
the
use.
flagship app right now for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And then everything built on top of, friend tech. But something cool about friend tech is they surpassed Tron and Uniswap and earned fees in only, what are they on day 11 now, I think, since like their more public launch, I guess you could say. Um,
Yeah,
which is
yesterday was
pretty
six
wild.
million.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. How long do you think this sustains, DK? You think this is the new meta forever?
Hey man, people are having fun. I'm okay with it. I still haven't set up an account yet, but we got plenty to do.
You're
Hasn't been a priority
slacking.
for me.
The meta right now, at least yesterday, was e-girls.
Yeah,
Um,
I saw that. I saw that, and I also saw like some articles yesterday. It's like one of those. Everyone's getting insanely rich, but you.
no, not those yet. Um, the funny thing is like you I forgot who posted it, but people were kind of hating on this like e-girl OF like transition or I don't want to say transition, but coming to friend tech, like people are paying so much for people pay so much for the videos. Why would they move over there permanent? It's like the majority of their money is actually made off messaging. So people paying them to be able to message with them. So friend tech is very parallel to where they're seeing the most value being able to be extracted from OnlyFans. Uh,
A
and
question for you
go ahead.
on friend tech: it's group chat though, no, or is it DMs, one-on-one DMs?
It's essentially a group chat, but you as the shareholder can only see the messages from the person whose shares you own. And on the other end, as the person who owns the shares, you can see all of the messages that people are sending to you. I'm sorry, as the one whose share that people own, if it's your chat, you can see everything that's put in there. But for
So
the
I'll give you an
people who own
example.
yeah, go ahead. If you own my
So,
share, you can't see anything that people are sending me in the chat. You can see all my replies though.
oh, so if I send you a dick pic, only you can see it.
In the future, yes, if you sent me a dick pic, only I would be able to see it.
Okay, because that isn't that like what a lot of the messaging is, right? Is a lot of like is body rating
Totally.
stuff like
Yep.
that, or
Yep.
personalized
100%.
videos, or but if I send a personalized video back in the group chat, like let's say you send me a personalized video and you're like, hey DK, does everyone else see that personalized video to hey DK?
If they, I mean, I assume that all right, if I were to hypothesize, right, you look at SteelCam, and SteelCam was digitized or pixelated to anyone that didn't own that item. So if I were to make an educated guess, if they were to implement video and picture or, video picture type content into the platform, it would not be visible to everyone by default. Now, that's just a hypothesis
Mm,
because I think that the issue that you're bringing up is like the biggest issue with um, it is the problem kind of with like OF at the moment that you share something and then like people can take it and just like repost it around. And nothing stops someone from like unpixelating the image and then sharing that around, right? But what it does do is it lets you know exactly who did that, like which shareholder had that video or image or whatever, which shareholder did it, and also like it's such a smaller pot that let's say like you did put something out and then it leaked, like you already know like the group. So I do see it as kind of a um,
can you kick? Can you rage kick people?
you can't rage kick shareholders. No,
Mm,
something we should bring up to Racer because like the one thing people have brought up was what happens if like a stalker buys your share and they just harass you like every day in the chat. Like yeah, you can ignore them, but like nothing stops like them from just sending you tons of messages. Again, they're like 2 weeks out, so I think all these like small things will probably be addressed if they continue pushing forward. But I think like content is probably the first thing they're going to go at because it's the most requested thing. Um, and given that they already have an application that was or had a previous app that was really like rooted and based off of that, it seems like the next step or path forward there. I could be totally wrong. I'm not in their chats. I don't know what they got cooking, but just something I'm thinking about. Either way, congrats to them beating out Tron and an actual blockchain and Uniswap. You know, the most prominent DEX in fees is a pretty big accomplishment. On to the next thing. I thought this one was kind of cool. Well, not cool, kind of funny. I don't know why I said cool. I thought it was cool news to share because it's funny. NFT platform Recurs decided to shut down less than 2 years after raising $50 million in a Series A funding round. How is that even possible?
I never even heard of this platform.
Like, I just don't understand. How do you?
That's a lot of
All right,
money. Unless they
out
were
of
buying NFTs with it.
like,
They're prop trading NFTs and then
were,
going
were
down to
you
zero.
were you aping like punks, art blocks, and apes at the top to have as collateral on the platform? Like, I just don't. I don't understand how you blow 50 million in under 2 years when you're running an NFT platform. Like, it's like when people ask like NFT projects, like what's next, like what's on the roadmap. Like the mint's over, buddy. Like, the mint ended. That was the roadmap. I never like really got the whole like we released some JPEGs. Now let's lay out a roadmap for you to string you along. We have merch, and we're going to release more JPEGs, and we're going to. It's just like, I don't know. It always was something that made me laugh. Let's see what. Give me one sec here. All right, sorry about that. Let's see. What was the next thing? The Pennsylvania sim swapper stole 20 million, got jailed. Good for him. Glad. I fucking hate sim swappers so much.
I got a
It's.
question.
Go ahead.
Do you think sim swapping is really the carrier being ignorant, or do you think it's inside jobs at the carrier?
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's both. Um, I think more so now it's probably inside jobs. Um, because because like you can put on a do not port order on your phone. Anyone can call
Yeah.
their you not call. You can go into your
You do online,
uh
yeah.
for the one uh where it's like essentially locked and you have to come in, you have to go in, and then they'll like put an authorized do not port order. I have a picture of me, there with my on their file. So like I have to be there to do it. Um, and a lot of people who are getting this done to them have those do not port orders on their phone. I've seen some TikToks and some pictures of people showing, like how easy it is, or like them at a T-Mobile and showing like the drop-down menu to be able to like swap out the number and shit like that. So I definitely lean towards that in today's environment, that it's more inside jobs than just. But at the same time, it comes down to, uh, you know, Comtel provider ignorance, because they could easily just remove this option from anyone's settings outside of like their branch manager or something, and now you've limited it to, maybe 3 people at a store that can do this other than rather than 20 something. I don't know. I've only had my sim swapped once, and it was like a long time ago. Um, so I feel for the people that do have it done to them. It's really that, and like getting a wallet drained are like the most like self imploding feelings, because you feel like someone's like in your house with you that you can't see, because they like they stole something from you that's like private and digital, and if you and you have to kind of backtrack and figure out where you fucked up. Like when I lost the BTC that I did, a handful of years ago, like I knew why I got lost. Like I made a fuck up. I upgraded Electrum with like a bogus like update, and it stole my money. Um, for other people, it's like clicking on certain emails, or it's that, they're airdrop hunters. So like, they're clicking on shit all the time and they don't realize what they're approving. But to them, they don't know that they did that.
Yeah, I'm always scared of it be like a 0 day or something, or an extension man in the middle or supply chain. Because like there, you see a lot of stories of like you have this extension, and then the original person who built it sells it to someone else, and then they upgrade the code so that it goes into your MetaMask and steals all your private keys. Like that's the kind of stuff that terrifies me. It's like
Yeah.
not that I'll approve a transaction that drains my wallet. It's that one of my extensions will get upgraded and I'll steal my keys, or like I go to a website and there's a 0 day and they can steal my keys from MetaMask.
My friend was using a ledger and got clickjacked. Like, he was kind of new to crypto, so he didn't even think twice about it. He just like he went and copied an address and then pasted it, sent, just went through the approvals and sent. And I think he said he realized it like, a few minutes after, and was like, fuck, what address is that? It's not, definitely not mine. And he like called me up, and I like, at the time, like I was doing a lot of like on-chain analysis stuff that more so had to do with following flows of funds for hacks. And so he just like asked me like what could have happened, like out of this. I don't do anything, like I don't download stuff. And we found out that he did have some malware on his computer, and I was just like, here, copy this address, now paste it into a notepad, what do you see? And it was like the same address that he had sent to before. And I'm like, yeah, dude, you got wrecked.
Do you see some of that malware, that in the malware there's over 100,000 addresses? So what it does is it will like grab from the 100,000 addresses that it has the private keys for. It'll grab ones with like the first 4 digits that are the same and
Yep.
the last 4 digits that are the same.
Yep. Yeah, I was getting
Crazy.
hit with a lot of those, and they do freak you out, because like they'll name the token like USDC or something like that, or WETH. So you'll get the notification from Zerion like on your phone, or from Rainbow,
Yeah.
and it's like 6969.eth just sent 50 ETH, and you're like, wait, what? And you go and open up your phone and you see nothing got sent. Now I don't even look. Now I know every notification when I'm
Yeah.
yeah, I know that my shit's locked down. The only ones that aren't are ones that I don't care about. Like I have a couple that are still like vanity addresses that I mined, and like I don't keep anything significant in there. So like if one of those got hit, I wouldn't care. But all my like other money is not. There's no way that it's getting. It's not getting wrecked. Yeah. All right, let's go into some Black Mirror shit. China aims to implement its social credit system in the metaverse, proposing digital IDs and real-world consequences for actions within it. Do you think that the whole world moves in that direction, DK, or do you think this is just like dystopian China shit, much like social credit scores?
Mm.
Well, I take that back. Like we have social credit scores in the States. It's a little bit different.
Yeah. So to add that context on that, China doesn't have a credit score really in general. And so social credit is for them to kind of leapfrog what maybe something in the West or specifically the US has over, the course of your life. You could establish a credit score, and then it, tells if you're trustworthy or not in terms of borrowing capital. So other places in the world don't necessarily have that. So they implemented the social credit score to kind of leapfrog that forward and allow people to borrow money. And a lot of the dystopian things that you hear about the Chinese social credit score is actually specifically related to like you didn't pay back your debt and you have the capacity to do so, and then they'll like make it so you can't travel, right? So like if you borrow $5,000, you have 100,000 in the bank, and you refuse to pay the $5,000 back, that's when you get like the travel restrictions, right? So it's like it's not as dystopian as what is what you're kind of being told. But with that said, I think that a lot of the Asian, um, I say markets, but a lot of the Asian from like a cultural perspective, like they spend a lot more time in metaverse type environments. So you get like the gaming cafes, internet cafes, or you LAN parties, stuff like that. So I can see,
They're still huge.
uh,
Like when I
yeah,
was in Vietnam, and even in like, dude, we were like 3 hours out into the countryside in this village, and in the village, in the little market area, there was like a few um, buildings that had stores that were like permanent there. They weren't set up every day in the market, in like a barber shop. But one of them was uh, like internet cafe, and it was just as soon as school got out, like tons of kids would be in there just playing, first person shooters and shit.
yeah. I think it's both on the perspective of like it's a lower cost basis for you to, maybe you don't have the space or the means to pay for a nicer gaming machine. But then also I think that there's the community element, right, of playing games with other friends in a LAN type environment. It's just a lot
Totally.
more. It's a lot more normal, um, in the East, right? So yeah, I mean, I can see restrictions being placed. Like there are already some countries that already restrict the amount of hours per week that people are technically allowed to spend in internet cafes. So yeah, I could see there being some sort of restrictions being placed on you in the metaverse, especially when it comes to like gaming addiction and yeah, the you know some
Everything that comes with being terminally online.
yeah. Well, I was gonna say everything comes with being like a communist basis or communist capitalism. But yeah, it's pure capitalism. Sure, you can do whatever you want, freedom, whatever. But in a environment in which that you are trying to benefit the people as an aggregate, and you identify behavior that is unwanted, then you try to stir people away from that behavior, right? So I mean, I get it, right? If when you talk about it like that, I mean, it makes sense to me. Is it something that I would want to impose? Probably not on myself. I enjoy being able to make my own decisions, but am I like 100% against it because I see the value in it? Maybe not.
I'm 100% against it because you are, impeding the free travel of free humans on Earth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what about jail then? You don't like jail? You don't think criminals should go to jail and get their rights revoked?
I think that our definition of criminal is very skewed because of the psyops that have been played against our people. So I think that we would first need to adjust what criminal is, um, before you know before we start. And I also don't think that jail is the solution for a lot of crimes that we consider crimes. So yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to say that I agree with jail. I think there's other alternatives.
Is SBF a criminal in
I
your
mean,
world, in your idea?
I think SBF is safest in jail. So for him, jail is probably a bad
Mm,
thing.
got it. Anarchy 99.
I mean, I just feel like why is someone allowed to do so much damage and be protected? That only sets an example for people in the future that you can do substantial damage and get away with it by having your life protected. There's a video I saw a while ago that puts things into perspective. I think a bit, at least for me. And it was like, would you rather have $10 million, and if for some of our listeners who their medium-sized houses are 10 million, we'll say $100 million, right? You're offered that, and you had today, but you wouldn't wake up tomorrow, or would you rather wake up tomorrow? And like everyone that was asked, said like, yeah, I'd want to wake up tomorrow. Like, why would I only want one day with this money? It's like, okay, so waking up tomorrow is worth more than $10 million to you, or waking up tomorrow is worth more than $100 million to you. And when you think of it like that, like you're allowing him to still have the most valuable thing in the world, right? And that's like his life. So,
Fair enough. On that note, should we wrap it up for today?
yeah, before we go, I wanted to highlight one thing. It's a slight shill. We're both using something called Anatas, and no, we're not paid by Anata, not sponsored yet by
Yet.
Anata, but their 2.0 upgrade is this month. I'm not wearing my 2.0 one right now, but I wanted to talk about it just because I think they're really, really fucking cool. Um, I've always enjoyed using this version 1 version of it because when you are working in the industry, whether you're a founder for a protocol or you're just an artist, looking for work, a lot of people really value the Web3 identity they've created for themselves, or value their personal privacy. They don't want their face or their real voice or something like that getting out. Maybe it's because they're just shy and have social anxiety. Um, but Anata lets you, be as cliche as it is, like be your NFT, be this character. And what's cool with the new update is they're introducing leg tracking, arm tracking, all the art's updated. It's like extremely fucking detailed. They're going to allow you to swap outfits. So I'm not sure on the details of that yet, whether they're, giving you kind of like a closet that you can choose from, whether there's going to be like tradable outfits that, are available on the market. One thing I will say is I highly doubt that it'll be like an additional mint. Anada's been great about just giving things to the holders, people that minted that. Obviously minted at a high price due to the auction, but I think they've gone. I don't know. I don't want to say like above and beyond, but I think that they've worked really hard to make sure that everyone who holds an Anada has gotten a lot of value out of it since they went live. The other thing is tons of expressions, emotes. You got a chibi toggle mode. I don't know. They're really fucking cool. They come out later this month. I'm not saying go buy one if you don't have one, but something definitely to keep an eye on, check out. You're gonna see a lot of people who previously had these Anatas or had honoraries probably start using them again. Um, yeah, they look pretty fucking cool. So just wanted to shout them out. A little bit of news for that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I got something I really, really want to talk about, but I'm not allowed to because DK will kill me. But keep watching our Twitter on Premia. Gonna have some news eventually for you guys. Premia Blue soon. That's a wrap for today. See you back tomorrow. DK, anything else on your end?
See you tomorrow. Enjoy the day.
Later,
Be your
Anatas.
best self.
Later,
All right,
Anatas.
adios.